Everything is changing so rapidly that I might be saying something today completely erroneous in 6 months here. And the reason it's important is because back in 2008, I think, let's say, there was Hurricane Ike. And right after that, Lehman Brothers collapsed. A lot of the bad news going on, but it's especially bad news for those who drank the Kool-Aid of go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, and invest in a 401k or get a job with a pension. And the reason, the Queen, Prime Minister trusts a woman, kisses the Queen dies, and also Hurricane Ike hits, and the British pound collapses, is because the real big consequence of all this is that pensions almost died in England. So all the guys who drank the Kool-Aid, all you had to do was have a safe, secure job, and the government pension would save you, or you were a firefighter or a police officer or a teacher. Your pensions would save you.
My message to the funds involved and all the firms involved in managing those funds, you've got 3 days left now. You've got to get this done. Because again, part of the essence, I think, of a financial stability intervention is that it is clearly temporary.
Dow lost nearly all of a 400-plus point gain to end basically flat. The move comes after Governor Andrew Bailey urged pension funds to rebalance quickly, saying, quote, "My message is you've got 3 days left now. You've got to get this done." He added, quote, "The essence of financial stability is that intervention is temporary. It's not prolonged."
The program was announced in late September amid widespread liquidity problems in UK pension funds. That was brought on by a surge in yields in UK gilts after the new UK government announced plans to cut taxes and boost government deficits.
The problem with most people is they're stuck in microeconomy. They don't see the big picture. 90% of Americans just believe that don't worry, America will bounce back. I think it'll be happy days are here again. And as a U.S. Marine, we call the people who are stuck in the microeconomy, they got their heads up their asses. They can't even see what's happening in the real world. And the question is, are you prepared for it? And another better question is, how do you prepare for it, and how do we get through? How do you get through what's about to happen? Because it's one thing to crash, but can you survive it? My poor dad, my PhD father, he always said to me, he says, I'd be a rich man if I didn't have you kids. And I said, well, Dad, it's not my fault you had kids. I just can't afford it because I have kids. And the more he said that, the angrier I got. So when I met my rich dad at age 9, he says, well, that's why your old man's poor, because he's lazy. He thinks his PhD is going to carry him. He says, everybody can say, I don't have money, I can't afford it. He says, that's why he's poor. He's lazy. But my father kept going back to school, Stanford, University of Chicago, Northwestern. He never learned any of this stuff. They still don't know it because most teachers want a paycheck, pension, and tenure. They want job security. So the mindset is different. But the reason I had to learn to raise money was because I had no money. And so if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, in there, my rich dad always said, never say, I can't afford it. And it was my rich dad and many of my teachers subsequent to that said, lazy people always say, I can't afford it. I don't have the money. That's why they're poor. They have a poor mindset. I travel throughout the world. I've seen what the Chinese are doing all over Africa. I cannot believe they have whole compounds, of Chinese people. I was in Cameroon, and they have these huge trenching machines dropping fiber optic cable all the way across Africa. And what are we doing? Nothing. We have Kamala Harris not even going to the frickin' border, and she's the border czar. Oh my God. And then when Andy talked about how when they abandoned Afghanistan, you forget that I was there in Vietnam when they abandoned us in 1975. And I still remember, I'm walking through the village. This is before we declared we quit, before we quit Vietnam. I was watching the Vietnamese scurrying around, and they were buying gold leaf. That gold leaf they rub on stuff? They were buying gold leaf like crazy. I'm going, and Americans, as I write about, we don't know what gold is because it was illegal for us to own gold. So I'm watching these Vietnamese buy all this gold leaf. And I asked my staff sergeant, his name was Jackson, he was one of the smartest guys I met. I say, Jack, why are they buying gold? He says, they're going to run. They know Americans abandoned us. They're going to run. They're going to get out of this country as fast as they can. And during my era, that was the Vietnamese boat people and all that. They were climbing on. They were ready to get out of that country. And then one of the more famous pictures is the picture of a CIA Air America helicopter on top of the U.S. Embassy. And all these Vietnamese people are running up there, and they're punching them, trying to keep them out of there. And then they have us on our aircraft carriers, and we're dumping our helicopters over the side because they got too many of the Vietnamese helicopters running. They were flying to our carriers. And I was out there watching all this stuff going, holy mackerel. And then in 74, that's when the ERISA came out, the 401k, and going, what the heck is going on? I just want to say this to all millennials. People complain about you guys, especially the older generation, the boomers. I'm a boomer. But the fact is that when I started looking into what's going on with the boomers, I have this to say to all of you, which is from my point of view as a boomer, is you guys are. So when I looked into what your situation is, we had a thing called Social Security. So they put nothing into Social Security because it came out, I think, 1933 or 36, whenever it came out. Social Security is now bankrupt. Look at this chart over here. This is Social Security. So the boomers now are facing a world without Social Security because Social Security is broke. And the more I looked into, boomers and millennials, this is another thing that you guys face, is that expenses are going up of America. But what's happening is income is coming down. So you guys are in very serious trouble. That's like a family where they keep spending more money, but the father or mother are not bringing money in. So what we're passing on to you guys, World War II and the boomer generation, is an estimated $180 trillion deficit to as high as $225 trillion when you count Social Security and Medicare.
The end justifies the means. They don't care who they destroy. They hate the middle class because the middle class is fairly independent. They go to work, they get a job, they get their paycheck, they have their 401k or maybe a pension. They can't stand that. This is not by accident. This is intentional. They want to squeeze the middle and the lower class as much as possible, put their boot on their neck as hard as possible so they beg for normalcy. And when they beg for normalcy, that's when an authoritarian arises. That's right. When a dictator comes in.
Every time there's hyperinflation, dictators arise, revolutions come up. That was Stalin, Mao, Lenin, and